As always, or mostly, he opens with c4. We have knight f6, English opening, knight f3, we have e6, g3, d5. So Neo-Catalan in the English opening, that's the name of the line if you are interested. We have exchange in the center. And now bishop g2 preparing to castle, and now bishop d6. So Wesley So also want to prepare for the castle. b3 now bringing another bishop also to the long diagonal. Jan Krzysztof Duda likes to do that very often. This is one of his ideas how to continue the game in the English opening. We have castle by Wesley, so bishop b2, rook e8, and now castle by Duda. c6, so solidifying this pawn structure, and now d3. So as you see, Jan Krzysztof Duda doesn't fight for the center with the pawns. He creates this, dragon pawn structure similar to the dragon in the Sicilian defense, but he usually plays that as white. So we had a lot of games, in this system. And now, what is the idea of Wesley So? How to fight against that? We have bishop g4, and now knight b2 d2, knight b2 d7, and now rook e1. The idea is pretty straight. e4, play e4, maybe prepare it with queen to c2, and strike in the center. And then once the pawn on is e4, then for example f4 can be played, then e5, and so on. So he played that in this pawn structure pretty often. And now how black usually responds in this opening? It was played not many times. We have only 4 games in the database. Black can, for example, attack on the queen side, but this is pretty slow stuff. Queen c7, connecting the rooks, bring the rook to the center. This is also possible, or immediately maybe jump to e5 with the knight and try to exchange the knights. But Wesley So has a different idea, and he played bishop f3, so he gives up the pair of bishop. But now look at this. After knight f3, this knight doesn't support e4 anymore, so it's more difficult to play. Moreover, we have bishop b4 attacking the rook, and now what to do? Go back with the knight? It doesn't look good. So rook f1 by Jan Krzysztof Duda, and now bishop d6. So as you see, e4 is not so easy to play. Queen c2 just to support that move, and now we have queen e7. So Wesley So doesn't like it as well. Keep an eye on e4, but also he wants to exchange the dark square bishops, which is even more important. So queen e7, and this is the idea. Now, how to play against that? Jan Krzysztof Duda played knight d4 with the idea of jumping with the knight to f5 and win this bishop, and then he can play with the pair of bishops against pair of knights. That could be very interesting. However, Wesley So is not interested. Bishop a3 as planned, and he wants to exchange the bishops. We have knight f5 as planned, attacking the queen, queen f8, and now finally exchange the bishops, as the bishop doesn't have good squares here, so just exchange the bishops. We have queen a3, and now finally e4 is possible. And it's quite tricky now. We have queen c5, asking to exchange the queens, and Duda avoids that. So he played queen b2, which is pretty tricky, because it looks now that this pawn is under attack and can be, attacked 3 times, which is true. We have d takes on e4, d takes on d4. The point is, knight on e4 cannot be played. I hope you see that already. There is a checkmate on g7, so pretty tricky. So first Wesley So want to kick the knight. We have g6, and now the knight can go very easily to, for example, e3, and then black can pick up the pawn. So Jan Krzysztof Duda has different idea here. Knight h6, and now if king g7, then knight can go, for example, to g4, as then this knight is actually pinned. So we have king f8, not really the greatest square for the king, and now rook a to d1. So controlling the open file and cutting the way for the king, if the king want to, for example, escape this way. But now we have queen h5, trapping the knight. And what to play next as white? You cannot defend the knight because king g7 and you're gonna lose the knight. The knight has nowhere to go. All of the squares are, of course, controlled by black. Something like e5, attacking another piece, that doesn't work. Simply rook e5, and the rook is of course defended, so there are no tricks here. So Jan Krzysztof Duda decided to give up the exchange. We have rook d7, knight to d7, and now queen h8. And it looks pretty scary. We have king e7, and now queen h7 was possible. However, Jan Krzysztof Duda didn't want black to give the opportunity of bring the connected rooks to the h8 and then, you know, play together with the queen, maybe with some mating idea. So, you know, just queen g7. Don't take the pawn yet. We have rook f8 defending the f7, and now f4. So finally moves f4, then of course e5 is coming, and so on. And now what to do with this king in the center? It looks pretty ugly. We have rook a to e8, making a space for the king, so artificial castling by black, and also the rooks already control the center. And now we have e5 by Jan Krzysztof Duda. Firstly, controlling f6, so for example the knight cannot jump to g4 and deliver a checkmate, one of the ideas, opening the diagonal for the bishop as well, and also creating very interesting, very strong outpost for the knight, maybe for the queen in the future. We have queen e2 by Wesley so he brings the queen closer to the king, which looks pretty dangerous. However, other pieces, how to activate the other pieces? We have rook f2, now defending also a2, and now queen e1 with check. We have bishop f1, so Jan Krzysztof Duda creates the shelter for his king, and now Wesley could try something like, you know, queen e3, and maybe if the queen takes the pawn for free, maybe bring the knight to c5, maybe bring to e5 and continue the game. It looks like pretty sharp, but of course king g2 is possible, and for example queen e4, and this could probably end in a draw. So this is pretty possible to, you know, just get the threefold repetition. But Wesley plays for the win. So king d8, so he hide his king, and now he want to bring more pieces to the attack on the position of the king. But this of course is very costly, as this pawn is without protection now. Only the rook of course defend. So we have knight f7 with check, and now king c7. So king is very safe there, maybe not very safe, but much safer than it was. And now it looks like, okay, this is a beautiful outpost for the knight. Now, if you go immediately, that is the problem, and I hope you see that. So you can you know, pause the video and find the way how to punish that move. Rook e5 is extremely dangerous because it wins the pawn. Now the knight is in the troubles. F takes on e5 of course cannot be played because that would be the checkmate. So first Duda of course has to prepare that move, and he played rook e2. We have queen d1 and now knight d6. So finally very beautiful outpost. However, Wesley okay, this is too beautiful, I'm gonna, you know, now give back the exchange and win this dangerous pawn. This is passed pawn, and it's protected passed pawn with this beautiful monster knight. So it's too much, this too much. So we have rook e5, of course f takes on e5, that would be the checkmate on f1. So rook e5, and now queen d6. So the material is equal, and now the game gonna be even sharper. Queen h7, Duda says, okay, the material is not equal anymore, and now queen d4 with check, king g2, and now how to continue as black. It looks like the best move in the position could be king b6. And then let's say after rook e7, this is the main idea here. Probably something like queen d5. And again, black can get the draw, for example, after king f2, queen c5, king f3. The point is that black cannot really activate the pieces. let's say queen d5, king e3. So the best idea for black would be just bring the knight to c5 with the check if the king is, for example, on d3, and then maybe later even bring the rook, maybe with check as well. But it's not so easy. Queen c5, and now the knight cannot jump there. King d3, so as you see, it's not that easy. Queen f5, then king e3, and so on. So it's not so easy. And also, if black tries to, you know, activate, for example, with c5, there is always b4 move, which gonna kick the knight, and then the rook gonna take b7. So what Wesley so found is actually queen d2. Now queen d2 is with check, and also it protects b4. So the knight in the future can come to c5, and it cannot be kicked from there. So this is the idea. We have bishop e2 blocking, and now how to continue the game. So king b6 definitely is the main idea of Wesley So. But first he wanted to open the file for the rook. So if the rook can be operational here, then why not? This is why we have g5. Trying to, you know, just shatter a bit of the position. And Jan Krzysztof Duda took the pawn, and only now we have king b6 by Wesley So. Rook e7. And now knight c5 as planned. So the knight defends b7, and also it cannot be harassed. And it's on the dark square, so it cannot be harassed. We have queen g7 now harassing the rook, and also preparing to very interesting maneuver. Rook is under attack, so rook f5, attacking the pawn on g5 twice. Jan Krzysztof Duda want to save it, so we have g6. And now how to continue? Wesley So actually found very interesting maneuver. As you see, his pieces are quite operational. However, the position is very, very sharp. Also, you know, the bishop is pointing over there. There is the battery on b7, so position is extremely sharp. However, we have queen d5 with check, king h3, and now rook f2. So the idea is very simple. Queen g2 checking and also picking up the bishop. Double attack here. But Jan Krzysztof Duda has a very interesting answer here. So maybe it's time to pause the video and find the strongest continuation for white while I enjoy my cup of tea. Okay, ready? So you could play something like b4, but this is not enough to win. The position is very sharp. A lot of tactics. So for example, in this case, rook e2 saves the game for black, because after b takes on c5, king c5, rook e2, there is the tactic, you know, winning back that rook. So king g2, and that would be probably threefold repetition. So that would be the draw. However, imagine that you can, you know, replace switch the position of the queen and the rook. So the queen is on e7, and then this battery would work as a charm. This would be the idea. That is the checkmate actually, because the bishop controls the light square around the king. Now how to do that? Because definitely the queen comes to g2, gonna, you know, win this bishop, but how to do it fast? So Jan Krzysztof Duda found a way, and he played queen e5, and the idea is very simple. This is the checkmate. What a move. Very beautiful move. And now, of course, if black exchange the queens, then we would have rook e5. And now this pawn gonna win the game. If black want to stop it, then g7, rook g8, and now rook e7. The bishop gonna come to c4, win the rook and the game. So probably knight e6 is forced, but white gonna have, you know, extra bishop, so that's winning. So Wesley So tries different way, and he played queen g2 with check, and now he says, okay, I have the plan. King g4, and now knight d7, saying, okay, I'm blocking your battery, and now if you take the knight, then I'm gonna take your bishop. How about that? Jan Krzysztof Duda said, okay, let's see who calculate more precisely. We have rook d7 and of course rook e2, and now queen c7. How about that? And now where to go with the king? Actually, it doesn't really matter. We had king c5, we have queen a5 with check, and as you see, there are no legal moves with the king. All of the squares are controlled with the rook, with the queen. So we have b5 by Wesley, but after queen a3, he resigned. So Jan Krzysztof Duda won on the first board against Wesley. So beautiful game. Now he resigned, of course, because we're gonna have a checkmate. If we have b4, then queen a5, this is a checkmate. And if we have king to b4, b6, then we also have queen a7 and checkmate. And Poland won against USA, so this is why Poland has 13 points. USA, that was the first loss. First 6 rounds USA won pretty easily, and then there's something strange happened because there was another draw against Peru, and Peru did pretty well. For some reason, Daisy Corey, who made, you know, a lot of points, 6 out of 7 points, she didn't play in the last 2 games, so Peru actually could win against USA. And also against Argentina, but couldn't win against Argentina without Daisy Corey, and Peru didn't get to the playoffs. So I hope you like this, I hope you enjoyed. Leave the comment if you would like me to cover more games from this FIDE Chess Olympiad. There are big names over there, a lot of interesting games there, so I'm interested if I should follow a couple of games maybe. And yeah, press like if you like this video, press unlike if for some reason you don't like it, and if you like my style of commenting, then press subscribe, smash the bell button. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.